Shalom and welcome to Boots on the Ground Live. I'm Yair Pinto, coming to you now with everything that is happening in Israel. So the Israeli Air Force performed another series of strikes, 2,200 kilometers deep inside Iran. The Israeli jets struck Khor missile depots before they were able to perform. Excuse me, I'm hearing myself in the feed here in my ear. Again, the Israeli jets struck Khor missile depots before they were launched at Israel. So guys, we will report all the details about today's American strike on Iran, which involved the most expensive aircrafts ever, the most powerful bunker buster devices, and the legendary missile. Together, we'll get into every detail of how Donald Trump struck Iran. Khamenei is not in the bunker for nothing. Iran made its worst mistake of this war. The United States said, "We destroyed Iran's nuclear program," and an American source said, "Fordow was badly hit, but not destroyed." The Iranian parliament approved the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, and the United States military immediately sent massive naval forces. Will the Iranians set the world on fire? Are we expected to see further escalation on Iran's part? I'm Yair Pinto, and together with me is Mati Shoshani, and we are bringing you Boots on the Ground, the news report that brings you the whole truth about what's happening in Israel. So the United States used 182 tons of bombs, creating 6 craters in the largest strike in United States history. 7 B-2 stealth bombers flew 18 hours from the United States. They dropped 14 giant JBU-57 bombs on Fordow and Natanz. At the same time, more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles, the star of the Gulf War, were launched at Isfahan. These are the weapon systems that the United States used in the historic strike on Iran's nuclear sites. And senior United States military and politicians rose and praised the American strike in Iran, clarifying that this is the largest operational attack ever by B-2 bombers. The defense secretary clarified the mission was not to topple the regime, but to defend Israel. In the last hours, we received new details about Operation Midnight Hammer. It turns out that the United States president created a false display, and that's how Trump fooled everyone on the way to the strike. Senior officials revealed how Trump waited until the planes left Iran before announcing the strike. And the United States administration says that many more targets remain on the list, that this could take days and not weeks. The American Defense Secretary declared that the strikes on Fordow, on Natanz, and on Isfahan were an amazing success, and that Iran's nuclear ambitions have been wiped out, but the hardened site near Qom apparently was not completely destroyed. The Security Defense sent a warning to the world. American deterrence is back. When President Trump speaks, you'd better listen. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said the facilities suffered heavy damage. It's early to say whether Iran retains capabilities or not. An Iranian source, we removed the uranium from this site beforehand. And Deputy Foreign Minister Arakshi accused Trump of betraying us and his own country. And the United States has no respect for international law. He did not rule out closing the Strait of Hormuz and withdrawing from the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Satellite photos showed craters from the bombs that the United States drops on the nuclear sites. After the American strike on the nuclear facilities at Fordow, Isfahan, and Natanz, the Iranians now face several options, and the assessment in Israel is that they are acting on 2 tracks. First, assessing the damage, and second, how to respond, and of course, when. The IRGC threatens we will respond with attacks on Israel and on United States bases that are in this region, that they are also in danger. The Iranians accused the United States of coordination with Israel and threatened that their operation would continue in a precise, directed, and forceful manner against the infrastructure, the strategic centers, and the interests of the Zionist regime. Iran nevertheless decided to open the gates of hell on the Middle East, and the dramatic decision was taken following the American strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. The question arises whether Iran will choose to close the Strait of Hormuz or not. The strait is controlled by the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, and the threat of closure could harm Iran itself as a supplier of oil to China and also to Russia. The Iranian parliament approved the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, and following the decision to close the world's main oil route, a decision with dramatic implications for oil prices all around, the United States Navy immediately sent massive naval forces to that area. Putin, the Russian president, is silent after the United States entry, and a close associate jabbed at Trump, saying he won't be getting a Nobel Prize now. While the Russian president has still not responded to the United States joining the war in Iran, Moscow condemned the strike, indicating frustration over developments in the Middle East. And meanwhile, Israel keeps striking Iran in broad daylight. The Air Force dealt another massive blow to Iran at a distance of 2,200 kilometers. The Air Force struck Khormashkar missile depots before they launched the advanced missiles with a 2,000-kilometer range and a 1.5-ton warhead were destroyed in the depots before they were able to be launched towards Israel. In addition, the Air Force struck dozens of military targets across Iran, including a strategic missile headquarters and UAV facilities, as part of an effort to thwart the threats to Israel. On top of all of that, it destroyed fighter jets and missile launchers and attacked two F-5 fighter aircrafts on the Iranian military. Last night, dozens of military targets in central Iran were struck, and amongst them, munitions depots and air defense systems. And after they eliminated the Air Force, is the IDF on its way to sink the Iranian Navy? So far, the IDF did not attack the Iranian Navy, but only the Air Force and the missile launchers. So up to now, most IDF strikes in Iran were against key figures and also nuclear sites, launchers, and missile depots. And now, naval targets of the IRGC were reportedly struck. And in addition, this morning, the multi-terrorist organization from Yemen announced earlier the end of its ceasefire with the United States of America. Now they clarify, we are officially entering the war. And meanwhile, in the Gaza Strip, in the war against the Hamas terrorist organization, attention naturally goes to Iran. But army forces are acting with great intensity also in Gaza, where the war has already lasted more than a year and 8 months. So we'll bring you all the updates on the Gaza front. In the negotiations to free our hostages, Israel is examining a new outline for a hostage deal, waiting for Hamas's reply to this new proposal. And the National Security Advisor, Hanegbi, revealed in the Foreign Affairs and other committees, excuse me, we have some issue. Mati, are you with us now?
I am with you, yes. How's it going, Yair?
Yes, Mati. It's going very well. It's good to see you here again with us. And looks like we have a lot to talk about today in this conflict, in this war. Can you give me just a little bit of an update of the situation now? Where are we going with the war? And are we going to see more strikes carried out by the United States of America, or they had enough with the big bombs?
I fear guessing what Trump is going to do next. Look, 24 hours ago, and it was actually exactly that. You and I were live, and we were talking exactly about that. And President Trump, he feigned an attack. He said, on the one hand, we're going to negotiate for 2 weeks, and then on the other hand, they were sending a decoy team of B-2 bombers towards the Middle East, and then shortly after that, they bombed multiple sites across Iran, or Iran, as we're supposed to say it. So look, earlier tonight, President Trump says, along with Prime Minister Netanyahu, they say two contradicting statements. The first statement is by President Trump, look, we've dismantled or we've broken down the Iranian nuclear program, and now we're moving towards an agreement. Prime Minister Netanyahu says a heartbeat later, he says, yes, things are going well, but we won't stop attacking until there is no more nuclear program. And I want to be clear, there is no 0% nuclear program that ever will be reached. The nuclear program is many, many different components, built up of many different systems in many different sites. Many of them have been dismantled and destroyed by Israeli and American attacks in the last 8 or 9 days. That is a very positive thing that has taken place, but not all of it is destroyed. Many of these scientists and the brains and knowledge behind this program have been destroyed, have been exposed, have been eliminated, but not all of them. And that's really where we're going to be. There are more targets to bomb, especially if you go down into the infrastructure level of what makes the nuclear program happen. There's a whole lot of infrastructure, there's a whole lot of research that goes into it, and it's spread out systematically across many, many different locations around Iran. And you have to credit them and say that they've done a really good job of hiding some of these facilities. The fact that it took over a dozen bunker busters, the biggest bunker buster bombs ever used and ever developed by mankind, it took that many to actually bring down just a handful of sort of like the key locations that needed to be struck. It just indicates how much the Iranian government has spent on this, how much they've invested in this. So my sense is tonight is going to be more of the same. Israel continues to attack in Iran. The Iranians might try to send ballistic missiles tonight or tomorrow morning, as they did today to Israel. They might try to use some kind of proxy warfare. And then we've been talking about this over the last couple of days. I think we're going to start seeing the early signs of them using IRGC tactics, which is disruption of maritime trade. That's really their MO. That's something they've been training for and practicing for many, many years. I expect that's going to be their next step. And one last thought,
definitely,
which I think is very important, is the Americans. The U.S. stepping into this has been a game changer. The fact that the U.S. government is behind Israel on this, the fact that they've taken direct military action instead of indirect, it indicates the seriousness of their intentions and how far they're willing to back Israel in combating Iran. And that is something that can't be overstated in its importance.
Yeah, definitely, Mati. Now, I want to get back to the news and the updates regarding the terrorist organization Hamas and our efforts to retrieve our hostages. So, the National Security Advisor Hanegbi revealed in the Foreign Affairs and in the Defense Committee that Prime Minister Netanyahu is considering a more flexible outline with Hamas to release the hostages. And now the ball is in Hamas's court, which sent a delegation to Cairo, Egypt. The flexibility is release of 8 living hostages at the start of the deal and 2 more hostages after a few weeks instead of 10 in the first week. And Israel assesses that Hamas will realize it remains without Iranian backing and the chance for a deal will grow. So, Mati, we have a lot ahead of us, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and with me is the one and only Mati Shoshani, who hasn't been sleeping at all also because he's back and forth from the IDF reserves. And this is your boots on the ground report of what is happening in Israel. This is day 625 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq, and the terrorist organizations in Judea and Samaria. All of them are taking their orders from Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps, which in recent days is beginning to show signs of being destroyed and being bombed by the United States and by Israel. And guys, 1 second before we start, your support makes all the difference in the world. So we want to hear where you're coming from. Why do you support Israel? Why do you think it's important to destroy this evil regime in Iran And who's happy that the United States and the B-2 and B-52 bombers are joining this battle alongside the Israeli Air Force? I know I am very happy, and I'm sure that Mati Shoshani here was very happy to wake up this morning to this sound. Right, Mati?
Absolutely. I woke up early this morning. I think it was like 5 a.m. here, and I couldn't be happier. We went to bed last night hoping, I didn't even say praying, that the U.S. would step in. It is expediting the end of this conflict. It's going to bring forth a much swifter and more aggressive end to this. And this is really the only way forward. The way forward here is getting the Iranians to give up their nuclear program altogether. And it would take probably at least another week of bombing by the Israeli Air Force if the U.S. didn't step into this. So we can't overstate how important this is. We can't overstate how dramatic it is. And I know this sounds over techy and stuff like that. You can't exaggerate how impressive the American weapon systems are. It's impossible to overstate. When you look at these flying beasts, you see the B-2 bombers, you see the logistical chain behind them, you see the bunker busters that have been created specifically for these facilities. These bombs that were dropped just, last night, I guess, these bombs that were dropped are the second version of what was already the most aggressive bunker busting bomb in the world. They were crafted for this very mission. They were birthed out of the, creative minds of people in the military industry in the US, thinking of how can you get a munition to something that's 200 feet underground. And they figured out a way to do that. And I again, you see how effective these planes are. They're flying halfway across the world. They're fueling midair. They're dropping bombs that are the size of a house while they're doing that. And they're doing that while being completely undetectable to radar. I mean, it is hard not to be impressed. And you look at that and you say, the Iranians have no chance. They have to give in to this military pressure. Against Israel, they were unable to resist. Israel dominated the Iranian airspace for within hours of the initial attack. And with the U.S. in the game now, it's all over for them. And their next phase, which I think we started alluding to, they're going to try to disrupt naval trade. They're going to go do their usual terrorism tactics. But they simply are outgunned and outnumbered right now. They have a lot of small vessels, but they're nowhere near the capability of the U.S. And their intelligence and their radars and their logistical chains, all of that just is almost irrelevant when you compare it to the military might of what the U.S. Armed forces have parked in their front yard. And when you combine all of that together, you understand this game is different. It's a different reality than what we've seen previously, and we're moving at a pace that is faster even than what Israel's been doing in the last week or so in Iran. Very impressive days, very impressive images. Very, very happy on the Israeli side to see the commitment of the U.S. government and the American people to support Israel. And the attack last night is nothing less than a historical attack. You're seeing the images on the screen right now. Again, incredibly impressive use of technology, incredibly sophisticated and accurate intelligence that was used. And the damage that we're seeing, I think we're only hearing initial reports, is very substantial. By the way, guys, I want to warn you, we often mention the topic of fake news here. Many of the images coming out of Iran related to attacks in recent days have nothing to do with these attacks. Some of them are volcano eruptions in other countries. Some of them are, seriously, some of them are Israeli Air Force flights, on Independence Day in Israel that was superimposed over Iranian cities. Again, you have to be really careful with what you're circulating online here, because the images, now that the major attacks have happened, these, by the way, are real images. Our team takes careful attention to really make sure we get the right images. And sometimes what you see on the surface doesn't indicate how big the damage is underground. It might look like a little charred mark on the top, and underneath the ground, there's a crater that blew up 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stories underground. Anyway, really impressive time to be living in. History in the making as we watch it.
Definitely, Mati. And we can already see Iran trying to figure out what hit it this past week. And right now, its big threat to everyone is the dramatic decision made after the American strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. The question now arises, will Iran close the Strait of Hormuz? The strait is controlled by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps. So what's going to happen? I don't know exactly, but we will dive into this very shortly in this report. And guys, listen, just before we dive into all the details of what happened right after the American strike and what might come in the next few days, I want to call on all of you to keep spreading the truth, share, and follow us. And most importantly, don't forget to hit this subscribe button right here that just disappeared. Maybe it will come back right here. Yes, okay, right back. This subscribe button really helps us reach more people with what is happening in Israel. And guys, since 1938, the Friends of Israel has been there for the Jewish people, from rescuing families during the Holocaust to standing with Israel right now in the face of terror. They are partnering with us today, sponsoring this report, and it's a great organization that I'm going to share with you now. So this isn't just another aid group. They're Christian believers living out the Bible and blessing Israel with love, with support, and with real action on the ground. They're not flying in the last minute. They've been in Israel for decades, building trust, saving lives, and now they're feeding families, setting up bomb shelters, rushing medical supplies to the front lines, and bringing trauma care to victims. This is the moment to stand up with them if you want to help the people of Israel that need this help during this time. Not tomorrow, not later. Right now is the time to help, especially now after missiles were flown from Iran and hit Israel. So, guys, if you want to help the people of Israel, please go to israelurgent.org and give. Okay, again, that's israelurgent.org and give. Guys, that's Friends of Israel, and that's the way that you can help the people of Israel during this very hard time that we're at when missiles are flying, and show that we are not alone here. So, guys, let's quickly go over what the IDF hasn't done yet after the United States struck the Iranians. So, about 30 Israeli Air Force fighter jets struck earlier today using more than 60 munitions on dozens of military targets across Iran, guided by the Intelligence Directorate, the IDF spokesman, and other Israeli security agencies. And as part of the strike wave, the strategic missile headquarters, Imam Hussein, in the Yazd area was hit for the first time, and it stored long-range Khormashkara missiles. From that headquarters, about 60 missiles had been launched towards Israel, and at the same time, in Isfahan, Bushehr, and Ahvaz, missile launchers site for producing air defensive batteries and a UAV headquarters and depot were hit. During the strikes, the Air Force spotted Iranian soldiers arming launchers and immediately eliminated them. In addition, a short time ago, the Air Force fighter jets flew over Iranian soil and struck storage sites for long-range Khormashkar surface-to-surface missiles in the Yazd area. The IDF spokesman announced today, on Sunday, that this is the farthest Israeli Air Force strike yet, 2,200 kilometers away. These missiles had not yet been fired at Israel and were destroyed in their depots before they could be launched. The new version of the Khormashkar missile is a 2,000-kilometer range with a 1,500-kilogram warhead. This is a capability that allows it to reach any point in Israel. And according to reports, the IRGC Aerospace Force commander, Hajizadeh, who was terminated in the surprise attack, said that the Khormashkar 4 can carry 80 small warheads, which make it especially lethal. Last night as well, about 20 Israeli Air Force fighter jets struck dozens of military targets in central Iran that were guided by precise intelligence from the Intelligence Directorate. Targets included a military strike with components for producing explosives, sites for storing and producing weaponry, and Iranian air defense systems. The Air Force also hit military infrastructure at Isfahan airport to prevent the Iranian Air Force from using the site's military facilities. The IDF spokesman added that simultaneously in Isfahan, Bushehr, and Ahvaz missile launch sites facilities for producing air defensive batteries, the 3rd UAV Brigade headquarters, and an adjacent drone warehouse were hit. During the strikes, Air Force forces spotted Iranian soldiers that were loading launchers and the Air Force eliminating them on the spot. So the IDF will continue to reach any area and strike over Iranian soil to remove the threat to the state of Israel and to the Jewish people. This is according to the statement. Mati Shoshani, it seems that the IDF isn't resting. 3 times a day, we report countless strikes, and Iran doesn't seem able to regain control of its airspace. How is this affecting the situation?
Yeah, that's entirely correct. But just before we get to that, we have some breaking news coming in as we speak here. The Iranians are talking back. I'm not sure they're striking back, but they're getting ready to strike back. So this is a report that just came out in Iran, where the IRGC Navy is quote unquote preparing for battle. So Fares, which is the Iranian news agency, reported that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy announced that their naval forces in the Persian Gulf are preparing to enter the battlefield. Their news site reported that the Navy, along with its ships, which would make sense, their missile launchers and their drones are all at high alert and waiting on commands to join the battle. And this goes directly with what we were talking about just a second ago, which is Iran threatening to close the Hormuz Straits. And we need to remind people, what is the methodology of these people? Their methodology is they want to disrupt trade and maritime movement in their region. And the way they do that is they disrupt oil trade and they disrupt the tankers that go with that. And all it takes is a small, well, what we're seeing tonight, a small disruption. All it takes is a small warning word from the IRGC to say, look, we're going to start sinking oil carriers. We're going to start harming vessels traveling to the sea, through the sea. And that's enough to, one, stop the trade, and two, jack up all the prices of crude oil around the world. And by the way, there's one big country that really benefits from this. You want to guess who that is? Yair.
The benefits is Saudi Arabia.
No, from IRGC disruption. The Americans benefit from it. And this is what I think is really counterintuitive about this story, because if you stop trade in the Persian Gulf, so Iran can't export oil, obviously, because there's a naval blockade on them at that point. So the Saudis can't export it. The Qataris, the Kuwaitis, the Emiratis, they all have trouble getting their oil out on sea. So who can sell their oil for cheap? The Americans. So the US actually does better because of that. The price of oil around the world goes up, and people now need to start buying oil off the Americans versus off the Arab countries. It's a very counterintuitive thing. If you think about it, I don't think this is where the Americans are going. I'm just saying this as a side note. But to your question, look, Israel's been dominating the airspace of Iran. We've been doing so day after day after day. And it's done with impunity in the sense that it almost seems like someone's like waving, we're waving a hand in their face and saying, you can't touch me, you can't touch me, because that's what it looks like. Israeli fighter jets flying in full daylight at low altitudes, so low that sometimes I wonder how someone just can't take a big, a heavy machine gun and try to fire at them, flying over the skies of cities across Iran, and they're not hit. And not only are they not hit, they're unable to stop them. And at this point, we're 9 days into this attack. We were talking about thousands of sorties flown over Iran, countless times that these planes have gone back and forth. Not a single jet lost, not a single pilot taken captive, not a single injury that we know of. So the numbers are just staggering in that sense, and the air dominance is dramatic. Again, we've talked about this, a lot. I'll make this very short. The reason we were able to do that is because on hour 1 through 4 of this attack, Israel eliminated about 40 anti-aircraft sites around Iran. And when we did that, we really punched a hole through their air defenses. By the way, that already existed previously. It existed previously when we attacked them, or we counterattacked them earlier last year. And we showed that the Russian air defense system, specifically the S-300, wasn't as dangerous as we expected it to be. That really was what gave the Israeli Air Force, then the American Air Force, the confidence to know that American planes flown by Israeli pilots can make quick business of the Russian-operated systems held by the Iranian people. I don't think this is changing anytime soon, Yair. I think we're going to keep seeing this for day after day after day until Israel is done with its missions, or the U.S., together with Israel, have had enough time to knock out all the substantial targets, with Iran and the Iranians are willing to stop their attacks on Israel and come and negotiate about how they never again have nuclear capabilities.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that, Mati. And guys, if you like to understand what really is happening in Israel on a daily basis, and this is your first time to TBN Israel YouTube channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button and know that we are reporting every day and during this war 3 times a day about what is happening, so that you will have all the information and know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And guys, let's quickly go over what the IDF hasn't done yet after the United States struck the Iranians. So, about 30 Israeli Air Force fighter jets struck earlier today using more than 60 munitions on dozens of military targets across Iran, guided by the Intelligence Directorate. This is according to the IDF spokesperson's unit. And as part of the strike wave, the strategic missile headquarters Imam Hussein in the Yazd area was hit for the first time, and it stored long-range Homashchar missiles. And from that headquarters, about 60 missiles had been launched towards Israel. And at the same time, in Isfahan, Bushar, and Ahvaz, missile launchers, sites for producing air defensive batteries, and UAV headquarters and depots were hit. During the strikes, the Air Force spotted Iranian soldiers arming the launchers and immediately eliminating them. And in addition, a short time ago, the Air Force fighter jets flew over Iranian soil and struck storage sites for long-range Homashchar surface-to-surface missiles in the Yazd area. And the IDF spokesman announced this today, that this is the furthest Israeli Air Force strike yet. Again, 2,200 kilometers away. These missiles had not yet been fired at Israel and were destroyed in their depots before they can be launched. The new version of the Homashchar missile has a 2,000 kilometer range with a 1,500 kilogram warhead. Guys, I was at the location where the missile with 500 kilograms landed in a residential neighborhood in the central of Israel, and the devastation was just unbelievable. I can't imagine what a 1,500 kilogram warhead could do to that area. So this is a capability that allows it to reach any point in Israel and cause massive damage. And according to the reports, the IRGC Aerospace Force commander Hajizadeh, who was also terminated in the surprise attack, said that the Homashchar 4 can carry 8 small warheads, which make it especially lethal. And last night as well, about 20 Israeli Air Force fighter jets struck dozens of military targets in central Iran, guided by precise intelligence from the Intelligence Directorate. And targets, they include a military site with components for producing explosives, sites for storage and producing weaponry, and Iranian air defensive systems. And the Air Force also hit military infrastructure at Isfahan airport to prevent the Iranian Air Force from using the site's military facilities. The IDF spokesman added that simultaneously in Isfahan, in Bushar, and Avaz, missile launcher sites, facilities for producing air defensive batteries, and the 3rd UAV Brigade headquarters and adjacent drone warehouses were also hit. And during the strikes, the Air Force forces spotted Iranian soldiers loading launchers and also eliminated them on the spot. So, guys, the IDF will continue to reach any area and strike over the Iranian soil to remove the threat to the state of Israel. Mati, it seems like the Israeli defensive forces are not resting at any time or anytime soon. Do you think that once we destroy 100% of the missile launchers, will we stop, or now are we going to start carrying out attacks on other locations? I don't hear you. Guys, do you hear Mati? I cannot hear Mati Shoshani.
Can I hear myself?
Ah, now I can hear you. Good. Now I can hear you.
Good, good. That's what happens when you're a tank officer. You often can't hear other people. I suffer from
Yeah.
the same.
Voices is not so good. Yeah.
I suffer from the same problem. Look, here's the interesting thing. Yes, we've been attacking many different targets, and Israel has really diversified the portfolio of attacks. But really, the fundamentals were and will be the nuclear manufacturing facilities. And we're not going for 100% here. We're going for the big toys that the Iranians have created. We're going for the stockpiles of centrifuges and the stockpiles of enriched uranium, with a clear goal of eliminating all of them. But I think a really important piece of information that's been circulating right now is what President Trump has been saying over the last couple hours about what happened. In his words, and again, I'm reading this in Hebrew. I know he said this in English. He said a couple really interesting things. He says, one, if Iran had the bomb, then it would have already used it. And two, it's saying we've removed the bomb capabilities from Iran. And then the continuation of that news blurb is that the bombers that were involved in yesterday's attack, again, there's several units of V-2 bombers, the ones in Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, the ones that flew over yesterday. The bombers that were involved in yesterday's attack already flew back to the US, which is just amazing as far as their range goes. But that really gives you an idea of how surgical, how intentional, and how strategic this attack was. The whole purpose here is to remove the nuclear capability from the hands of Iran. We, and also the US, we're not trying to destroy the country of Iran, not trying to torment or torture the people, not trying to harm their electrical grid or their quality of life. Their government has done enough of that, let's be honest. What we're trying to do is eliminate their nuclear capabilities, knock out the nuclear enrichment facilities, enriching uranium to military grade levels, levels that are completely unnecessary, by the way, for any civilian purposes, and at the same time, do one more thing, which is remove their stockpiles of enriched uranium. And it takes a lot of bombing and a lot of attacks on them to get the idea across through the very stubborn heads of the Ayatollahs of Iran to the head of the supreme leader, Khamenei, and make sure that they know that they have only one alternative and one alternative only, which is to give in and give up, give in to the demands of Israel and the US, and give up on their stockpiles of enriched uranium. And it seems like we're inching towards that. These people are not a pushover, and they have no problem using a lot of force. But what we've covered in this broadcast so far, it shows you the amount of military force parked in front of Iran, including the American multiple carrier groups, the aerial assets parked around the Middle East, and Israel's fighting force that has been flying over Iran, well, more than commercial flights in recent days. Let's put it that way. We've caused a lot of damage, and we've shown them that they are very vulnerable to our attacks. They're unable to stop us at night, in daytime, and they're unable to stop our probes through their intelligence organization. The prevalent joke right now in Israel and in Iran is that the Iranians launched a bomb at the Mossad headquarters in Israel, and it hit, and no one was injured because everyone was in Iran. And that just shows you how deep the intelligence penetration of Israeli intelligence into Iran is. Truly impressive. The surgical precision in which the Israeli Air Force and the American Air Force have been bombing Iran, it just shows you this isn't carpet bombing. This isn't World War II blitz bombing. This is surgical precision attacks over targets that have been handpicked many years ago or months ago in most cases. And they're aimed at stopping a nuclear program, not harming the people, but stopping the evil plan of a very evil regime. And it seems to be working, Yael.
Yeah, definitely, Mati. And guys, I just want to say that in the midst of all this war, many people in Israel need your help. And there are organizations that we like to partner with that give you an option to support Israel in a practical way. And one of these organizations is the Friends of Israel. And guys, I want the link to this organization to come up on the screen now. It's called israelurgent.org. What they do is they bring aid, they bring food to those that need. They are supporting the people of Israel, but above all, they have been here with us, Christians that volunteer and come here to be with the Jewish people for so long in this country for decades. So if you want to support the people of Israel, you can go to israelurgent.org. And now, let's go over the strike that changed the rules of the game in the Middle East. After 8 days of unprecedented Israeli strikes in Iran, the United States entered the campaign last night and literally dropped its most powerful weapons against the Iranian nuclear facilities. These are the weapon systems that the Americans used in striking the nuclear sites at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The aircraft B-2 is the United States Air Force most prestigious weapon, and they have 20 B-2 Spirit strategic bombers. 7 of them flew an 18-hour mission from Missouri in the United States and dropped 14 JBU-57 bombs on the fortified nuclear sites, 12 on Fordow and 2 on Natanz, which Israel had already struck but not destroyed. So the B-2 is in fact the most expensive aircraft in history, with a price tag of $2.1 billion per bomber. Again, it's $2.1 billion per bomber. The bombers can fly up to 11,000 kilometers without refueling, and on yesterday's flight, they refueled several times on the way to the targets, and meanwhile, 6 additional B-2 flew into the Pacific Ocean and were observed, all deliberately to mislead. The United States Chief of Staff said that a total of 125 aircraft took part in the strike mission, together with the bombers and the fighter jets that escorted them. It is a heavy bomber with stealth capabilities, developed in part to extend the United States' nuclear deterrence because it can penetrate deep into the enemy territory without being detected by radar systems. The B-2s have previously taken part in United States bombings in Iraq, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Libya. And last year, they also struck Houthi targets in Yemen. The bomb is called GBU 57A/B MOP. Okay, this is the bunker busting MOP, officially JBU 57A/B, and it is the most powerful non-nuclear bunker buster. It weighs 13.6 tons and was developed by the Pentagon with one main purpose: destroying deeply buried, hardened targets like the Fordow nuclear site. It contains only about 2.4 tons of explosives only. Most of its weight comes from its armored casing, which enables it to penetrate deep into the ground and dig through the rock, through earth, and reinforced concrete, guided by its navigation system, and destroy any infrastructure. The JBU-57 is heavier than the mother of all bombs, MOAB, first developed in 2003 and weighing 10 tons. The MOAB has been used only once operationally in Afghanistan. And until last night, the JBU-57, call it the mother of all bunker busters, had never been used in combat. That changed after Donald Trump ordered the strike in Iran, as 14 of these bombs were dropped on Iran's nuclear facilities. And according to estimates, the United States military possesses only about 20 such bombs. If true, last night's historic attack used 70% of the American arsenal of this weapon. Even with bombs capable of penetrating to a depth of 60 meters, there had been some doubt about their ability to destroy the Fordow facility, whose depth is estimating at up to 90 meters. But reports say it can be done by dropping several giant bombs one after the other. Only 2 bombers can carry these bombs: the B-52 Stratfortress and the B-2, which indeed they dropped them. So let's talk about the cruise missiles that were fired by the United States. I'm talking about the Tomahawk BGM-109. So moments before the B-2s dropped their bombs, the United States Navy submarines launched more than 2 dozen Tomahawk cruise missiles from a range of 450 kilometers at nuclear sites in Isfahan, which the Israeli Air Force had struck earlier, but apparently without causing irreversible damage. One feature of these missiles is that its target can be changed mid flight. This time, that was apparently unnecessary, since Iran's main nuclear sites were the clear and known targets of these missiles. So the Tomahawk, which is a cruise missile that can be launched from ships and submarines and can reach a range of 2,500 kilometers, was the star of the first Gulf War when the Americans fired thousands of them at Saddam Hussein's Iraq in the missile's first operational use. The United States has since used them in wars in Libya, in Afghanistan, and Serbia, and also against Bashar al-Assad's Syria, and in 2 strikes last year on the Houthis in Yemen. Unlike the B-2 and the JBU-57 bombs, which the Americans have not sold to any foreign country, Tomahawk missiles have been sold to Britain, Australia, and the Netherlands. In the decade after the First Gulf War, Israel several times asked the United States to purchase the missiles and was refused. It was not yet been officially stated which submarines launched the last night's Tomahawks, but one may have been the nuclear-powered USS Georgia, which is capable of carrying 154 such missiles. So, Mati, after a strike arsenal like that in one night, if I were Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, I wouldn't leave the bunker either. I wanted to ask you, does Israel also have armaments and weapons and missiles like this? I mean, we have the Jericho missile, we have other ground-to-ground missiles that we didn't use so far. What do you think that Israel has in its arsenal that can also land a blow to the Ayatollah regime?
Well, let's start from the top of the list. Israel, first of all, has, according to foreign press, and I think we qualify as foreign press, so I'll just say this out loud. We apparently have nukes. And when I say that, and this is, this has been circulated as a rumor for decades now about Israel's ability, we have the ability to launch them, if we had them, from surface-to-surface missiles, from aircraft, from submarines that might or might not be just outside of Iran. We have many, many, many capabilities in launching a tactical or even a strategic level nuke. That's one of them. But then we have ballistic missiles that are far more accurate and effective and hopefully more evasive than the ones the Iranians use. But I want to be clear, and we've talked about this several times, we're not a bombing kind of army. We do surgical precision air work. We don't do carpet bombing. We don't do mass ordnance bombing. We don't carry strategic bombers. The two bombers you mentioned, the Stratofortress, which goes back, decades back, they're sort of that era of we're taking over an area and we're dropping tens of tons of munitions on it. By the way, just to clarify, the numbers you're mentioning when we're talking about the bomb, the MOP, the bomb that was dropped yesterday, that's metric tons. So that's 13 metric tons. For those who speak freedom units or pounds, we're talking more than double that, 2.2 that. So we're talking about 28,000 pounds of a bomb. And I've seen actually several documentaries. I'm sure this doesn't surprise you, Yair, on how they make these things.
Yeah, Mati loves to watch documentaries on his free time between going to the IDF and being on TV with me.
Yeah, it's a close second. Anyway, but I think it was the Moab bunker busters that you were talking about a second ago. I believe when they originally made them, they used artillery barrels to sort of be the casing to make them because they wanted to expedite the manufacturing. And if you're trying to make a hardened steel case, it's a long process to forge it, et cetera, et cetera. So they removed artillery barrels from decommissioned artillery guns and used them, I believe, for some of the beta versions and the initial tests. I think this last version that they used the other night is a slightly larger version, both in diameter and in thickness. And the way these things work is one, it's a lot of very complex chemistry in the sense of what kind of metals are used, and then a whole lot of timing when the fuse ignites underground, how it ignites, and according to what I've heard, there are some variants of this or some ways to use these bombs where they have multiple explosions that take place underground. Some of them pushing the bomb deeper into the ground, and some of them later on sending a shock wave downwards. So instead of just like a spherical shock wave, sending the shock wave down into the ground underneath it and essentially knocking down layers of soil underneath the bomb. So no, Israel doesn't carry these kind of bombs. We don't have B-2 bombers. We don't have the money, let's be honest. We're a country with 10 million citizens. We don't have the money to buy bombers that cost $2 billion a piece. Let's be honest here. No other country aside from the U.S. has pockets that deep to carry those kind of bombers. And we really don't work that way. And again, up till recently, I don't think we were expecting to be running bombing missions, dropping bunker busters in Iran. We were expecting to do other things, but that wasn't on the program. Our Air Force is built for multi-purpose use. It's sort of like the Swiss Army knife of air forces. They do dogfighting, and we've done it well historically. We know how to knock out ground targets. We know how to use long-range technological pieces like missiles or lasers, which is a new development that you did a piece on just recently. So there's a lot of technology that goes into it, but we haven't gone down the path of single weapon systems that do only the one thing. It's always multi-purpose, both for budget constraints, manpower constraints, and the fact that we're just a small army, relatively speaking.
Yeah, definitely, Mati. So I just got the report that the Associated Press, AP, published this afternoon the first satellite photos showing damage to the Fordow nuclear facility, on which the United States dropped massive bombs last night in an effort to destroy it. So from these images, it is still hard to know the extent of the destruction inside the facility. And in Israel and the United States, the intelligence is now gathering information to verify that the objective was indeed achieved. So a senior American official told the New York Times that the facility was indeed badly damaged, but not destroyed. In a statement by senior American officials, it was said that 14 bunker buster bombs, 30,000 pounds each, were dropped on the nuclear facilities, and that 7 B-2 bombers took part in the strikes. And in addition, 2 bunker buster bombs were dropped on Natanz. The United States operations name is Midnight Hammer. And Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said in a statement, Trump gave Iran every possible opportunity, so we destroyed the nuclear program. When the president speaks, the world should listen. No military could carry out an operation like the one executed last night. He offered peace, and Iran should have taken it. Iran should have listened to Trump's words. Any response will be met with force. Iran should act wisely. He also thanked Israel, saying, I thank our ally Israel. The plan was prepared for 2 months, and the United States is not seeking war. We will respond if we or our allies are threatened. Iran needs to heed these words. He further stated the mission's goals. The mission was not to topple the regime, but to thwart the threats against us and against Israel. Israel has impressive achievements in Iran, and after the American strike on the nuclear sites and amidst the threats that were heard in Iran and amongst its proxies, including the Houthis in Yemen, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian took part today in a demonstration at the Revolution Square in Tehran to chants of revenge. Later, he spoke with French President Emmanuel Macron and stressed that the Americans must receive a response to their aggression. He said the strikes on nuclear facilities demonstrate America's insincerity in talk of dialogue and peace. And meanwhile, the Iranian parliament recommended closing the Strait of Hormuz. The decision will go to the country's Supreme National Security Council. Iranian media reported this after Ismail Kawashari, an IRGC commander, said that the step is on the table and we will do whatever is required. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was also asked about it and replied that Iran has various response options. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Bagaki said that Iran is determined to defend its sovereignty and its security by all necessary means, and in a post on the social media X, he added, "It is now perfectly clear that the United States administration cooperated with a war criminal and murderous warmonger to wage an unjust war of aggression against our beloved nation in blatant violation of fundamental principles of international law, the United Nations Charter, and the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And this unacceptable act of aggression committed by the nuclear-armed state." So, the Strait of Hormuz, it should be noted, a major conduit of global oil exports, which is responsible for a third of the seaborne oil transferred and a fifth of all seaborne liquefied natural gas transport. The strait, which links the Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea, is considered by energy experts to be the most critical maritime choke point for oil shipments. Iran's Yemeni proxy, the Houthis, joined the threats against the United States of America as well. And Muhammad el-Bukhati, a member of the militia's political council, told Qatar's Al Jazeera's network that the American strikes on Iran are unjust and deserving of condemnation. He said, "We will stand by any Arab or Muslim country if it is subjected to any aggression." So he claimed that the Houthis are committed to freedom of maritime navigation and have not threatened to close the Bab el-Mandab Strait completely, adding, "We will not attack any country that does not participate in the aggression against Yemen or any Arab or Islamic country. There is direct communication amongst the resistance axis states, and we will coordinate together operationally." We are waiting for Iran's decision regarding the response to the American attacks. So, Mati, what do all these threats from every side, from Yemen, from a little bit we hear from Hezbollah, we hear a little bit from Hamas, all these so-called proxies of Iran are beginning to threaten? What can the the Houthis in Yemen do at this point to disrupt? And is the threat to launch attacks against the American ships in the Red Sea anything that we should feel?
Not really. I mean, the Houthis have shown us what they're able to do. They're not that much of a
Mhm,
concern. One, the U.S. has done an incredible amount of damage to their infrastructure. They spent about 6 weeks attacking
mhm,
nonstop in what I like to call Houtistan, which is Houthi-controlled northern Yemen. They attacked them severely. They've caused a lot of damage, but they do have the ability to disrupt maritime trade. And that's where things get expensive and tricky. Both the Houthis and the Iranians sit on straits. The Iranians sit on the Straits of Hormuz. The Houthis sit on the Straits of Bab el-Mandab. And what they can do and what they have the ability to do is to slow down or cause ships to go the other way around the world. By the way, I know you know the answer to this, which is why you asked the question. When they said we're not going to attack U.S. ships, that was an empty promise, because of tax laws and the way naval trade works, there are many U.S. owned ships. There are very few
mhm,
U.S. flagships, as in ships carrying the U.S. flag that are not military or merchant marines, etc. And because of that, when they said we're not going to attack American ships, that didn't really mean anything. Most ships that travel through the Straits of Bab el-Mandab aren't American. So it really was quite an empty promise to begin with. And I think they just stopped attacking because they were terrified of what the U.S. was going to do to them any further. But let's be honest here. Yes, terrorism is cheap and it's easy to execute, especially at a low level. They would be able to cause damage to trade, to ships passing by, to launch additional missiles. But ultimately, they have no ability to fully break both the fighting spirit and the ability of Israel or the United States. And now that the U.S. has already pulled the trigger, I think this is where things get important and different. They've already engaged in the game. They've already shown that they're willing to take offensive action, not just defensive action. And that is a very different situation and a very far cry from what existed on the seas of both the Arabian Sea and the Red Sea in the previous White House administration. So I think there's a change there. There's a propensity to take more action in a more volatile way against Houthis, against other rebel groups. And look, we thought 18 months ago that it was impossible to dismantle these terrorist organizations. We were afraid of Hezbollah and the Iranians and the Houthis. And look, it's been 18 months. They're all gone. They're not 0% existent, but they're not, but they're not 50%. There's somewhere.
Also, ISIS, also the Islamic State is still existence. It's also impossible to destroy completely ideology or a terrorist organization, but you can reduce it to not being an existential threat or a major disturbing force in the region.
Yeah, and that's where we are. Where's Hezbollah? Well, I haven't heard of from them in a while. The last thing I heard from them,
Hezbollah, I forgot that. I don't know the name anymore.
Is when the U.S. threatened to attack Iran. Israel started attacking Iran. Hezbollah immediately said, "I just want it to be clear, we have no problem with you guys. We don't want to fight. We're not planning to intervene. You can just leave us alone in our corner. We don't want to talk." And and this is really
they got hit very bad in this war. So they
But by the way, that was a direct quote what I just said, and that's a joke, of course. And Hamas the same. The Houthis in Yemen pretty much the same. Even the Iranian IRGC isn't as feared as it used to be. We've been able to punch holes through their defenses. The intelligence leaks that have come out of them and that allowed Israel to eliminate so many of their executives, they're just very dramatic. Very, very dramatic, one might say. Yeah. So, I mean, they can disrupt, they can bother. That's what terrorists do. They're not stopping us. They haven't been able to do in the past. They're definitely not going to be able to do it now. And ultimately, we're going to be able to pull away and peel away all the fluff, all the noise that the Iranians are trying to throw in our direction and reach a point where we are metaphorically and possibly physically, maybe not on a singular level, where our hands are around their neck and they have no choice but to give in, give up the nuclear program and stop all aggressive attacks until the point where we know that they're going to be true to their word and we can start removing sanctions and military pressure.
Yeah, exactly, Mati. Well, thank you so much for joining this report and for all the information that you keep giving us, Mati. I know that you had a long day, so wish you good night and thank you for joining us. And guys, let's move for just a moment to the Gaza Strip. Division 162 forces continue offensive operations in the Jabalia area. And during activity on the ground, the Givati Brigade troops spotted 6 terrorists in the sector and, with the brigade's fire array, managed to close the circle on all the terrorists and eliminated them. Division 252 forces continue operating in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, and the day before yesterday, the forces eliminated 1 terrorist who belonged to a Hamas engineering cell with a Zik. A Zik is a UAV, belongs to the Israeli Defensive Forces. Amazing device, by the way. And they directed a fighter jet strike on a weapons depot in the area. So Division 143 forces continue operating in the Rafah area. The division's fire array was eliminated it has eliminated about 10 terrorists in the area over the past few days. And Division 36 forces continue operating in the Khan Yunis area. And over the past 24 hours, the Golani Brigade troops destroyed about 15 terror infrastructures that Hamas had been using. In the wake of the retrieval of the fallen hostages Ofer Keidar, Shai Levinson, and Yonatan Samarono, National Security Council head Tzachi Hanegbi today addressed the negotiations for the return of the hostages who have already been held in captivity for 625 days. And he said there was the Witkoff outline. Then a Witkoff outline with flexibility. And now there is a Witkoff outline with additional flexibility that the Prime Minister is examining. In the Foreign Affairs and the Defense Committee, Hanegbi noted, "We are waiting for Hamas's reply." The second outline, reported at the end of May, is expected to begin with a 60-day ceasefire declaration. Within a week of the declaration, 10 live hostages and 18 bodies are to be released in two phases. Israel currently estimates that of the 50 hostages still in Gaza, 20 are certainly alive. A Hamas delegation has gone to Cairo, but no Israeli delegation is planned to go there so far. The Israeli assessment is that Hamas will wait to see developments in the war with Iran before advancing towards a deal. In the short term, Israel believes that Hamas will not rush into a deal, but in the medium and the long range term, as the results of the war become clear, the likelihood of a hostage agreement will grow because Hamas will realize it is left alone without Iranian backing. So, guys, let's unite in prayer for the hostages to return to their loved ones in Israel. Let's unite in prayer for the United States military, Air Force, Navy, all the forces that have joined this battle against this evil regime. And now they are also a target because they're defending the free world and Israel. Let's unite in prayer for wisdom to Donald Trump, to all the leaders of Europe, to the leaders of Israel, and to your leaders wherever you are from. Let's unite in prayer for the children of Israel, my children, Mati's children, all the children of this land that need to go to the bomb shelters every day for so many days, hundreds of days since this war started, and especially now since the war against Iran started. And guys, let's unite in prayer for the Iranian people. The Iranian people need your prayers also because they are hostages of this evil regime and they need to be freed of the Ayatollahs. And this is something that Israel and now the United States is helping them to achieve, but they will need to take the steps and do it themselves against this evil situation that they're in. And guys, let's unite in prayer for the Prince of Peace to reign in this region, and let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. Thank you for joining us. Keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem, guys. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. And we'll see you very soon.